Hi guys, now we'll see Leetcode SQL question gameplay analysis 4. So here we are given activity table. In this table we have these four columns: player ID, device ID, event date and games played. Here player ID and event date is the primary key. Also each row is a record of player, like what is the player ID of that player, which device ID he has played the game, and which date he or she has played that game, and number of games he have played that date. Now we have to write a solution to report the fraction of players that logged in again on the day after the day they logged in first time. That means like multiple users have logged in on the first day, then it may be possible they have again logged in on the second day also. So we have to find the fraction of such users, that is number of users who logged in on the next day after their first day login divided by total number of players. Like we'll see example so that we can better understand this question. Like this is the activity table. Here we have player ID, device ID, event date and number of games played. So like if we see this for player ID 1, he had logged in on like 1/3/2016 and 2/3. So player 1 satisfies the condition that he has logged in on the next day after login on the first time. So one player satisfies, only one player satisfies, like three also has not login next day because the year and month are different. So total players are three and one player has satisfied the condition that he has login on the next day after login for the first time. So it fraction is 1 by 3, that is 0.33, and it is given that answer should be rounded to two decimal places. So how we should approach this question? So first thing comes in our mind, if somehow we filter the rows based on that, only that data should be present where players have actually login on the next day after their first or initial login. Then we can simply count number of such rows present in the table divided by total number of players. But how we can do this? So one approach is simple. First, for each player, we'll find the first login date or initial login date. After that, we'll store that thing in a temporary table. Then we'll take activity table and do join with the temporary table in such a way that in the resultant table only those rows will be present which satisfy the condition that the player has login next day after the first login or initial login. So now from the resultant table, we can get the count of rows. It will be numerator, denominator we can get from count of rows in temporary table. And that will be our answer. We'll just do rounded to two decimal places. Like we'll see this SQL query for our actual understanding of this approach. So first we are selecting player ID and first login date from activity table. Then we are doing group by player ID so that for each player ID we can apply the minimum aggregate function. So and we are storing this result in temporary table. So in temporary table we are having player ID and the first login date for each player ID. Now we'll take activity table and do join with the temporary table such that in the resultant table we will only have those rows where players satisfy the condition that they have login next day after the initial login. This we are doing just by adding a condition that activity table's event date should be equal to first time login date plus 1 day interval. Once we get the resultant table, then we can simply get the numerator by counting the number of rows present in this table divided by the number of rows present in temporary table. And as it is given in question that we need to return answer rounded to two decimal places, so simply we'll apply round and round it to two decimal places and rename it as fraction, as in the output table we want the column name to be fraction.